through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Simon Evans. In just a moment, it'll be time for Headliners, the show where we look at what's in tomorrow's papers. But first, the latest news with Polly Middlehurst.
I'm Polly Middlehurst at the GB Newsroom. And the top stories this hour: Buckingham Palace has announced the Duke of York's military affiliations and royal patronages have had to be returned to the Queen. Prince Andrew, who faces a civil lawsuit in the United States over allegations of sexual assault, is defending his case as a private citizen. Additionally, a royal source has said today the Duke of York will no longer use his HRH title in any capacity. Here's what some of the public had to say about the announcement.
I'm surprised because I feel like that whole institution has been protected of itself for so many centuries now that it kind of feels like they've been untouchable for a long time. So maybe it's a sign of a good change.
You can't say he didn't know who Epstein was when he chose him as a friend, so he deserves it.
Ultimately, I think it's the right thing. I feel like if it's the things that came out about him, he should take responsibility.
MI5 has warned MPs that a Chinese agent called Christine Lee is covertly interfering in UK politics on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. Labour MP Barry Gardiner received more than £500,000 in donations from Christine Lee before MI5 issued the warning. He says security forces have assured him none of the improper funding Miss Lee channelled relates to his office. The Labour Party and the Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, each received some £5,000 from her. Former Conservative Party leader Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, who's been involved in helping Hong Kong Chinese flee the communist regime, told GB News their lives could be at risk.
It's not just a light, sort of easy-read novel. This is actually serious. As I say, lives could easily be at risk as a result of the activities of these people. Chinese government is a brutal organization. It brooks no dissent, and it deals with people like me and others who are now sanctioned by them. So we need to take this very seriously indeed, and we need to know more.
Ian Duncan-Smith. Police investigating the suspected murder of a primary school teacher in Ireland say no stone will be left unturned in bringing her killer to justice. 23-year-old Aisling Murphy was killed on Wednesday afternoon as she jogged along the Grand Canal in County Offaly. A 40-year-old man has been arrested and is being detained at Tullamore Garda Station. Crime and Policing Minister Kit Malthouse says he supports the Prime Minister but thinks he was right to apologise for attending a drinks party in the Downing Street garden during the lockdown in 2020.
Well, I think he was right to apologise, and absolutely I do support him. I think over the last couple of years he's done an extraordinary job bringing us through the pandemic. Don't forget the Prime Minister almost died in hospital because of COVID, right? This was a very, very difficult time in our national history, and we understand, and as the Prime Minister said in the House yesterday, why people are so angry about the allegations that have been made in Downing Street. We've got to let that inquiry conclude, and once it does, all will become clear.
The coronavirus isolation period for people in England is being reduced from 7 days to a minimum of 5 full days from Monday. The Health Secretary confirmed people coming out of isolation will need to test negative on days 5 and 6. On TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now more from Headliners.
Thank you, Polly. Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. Before I introduce tonight's guests, let's have a look at Friday's headlines. First up in Friday's Daily Mail, driven out, haunted look of Duke as he arrives for Crisis Summit. People never look good when they're being photographed in the back of limousines. The Telegraph leads with Queen freezes out Andrew, and Chinese spy gave Labour MP £425,000. And finally, parties held at number 10 as Her Majesty mourned. We'll be coming to all those stories later. The Times leads with Chinese agent with links to MPs infiltrated Parliament, Andrew humiliated as Queen strips his titles, and Downing Street parties were not criminal, inquiry to say. A little bit of fortune telling there from the Times. The Sun goes with thrown out. The Metro has also gone with thrown out and take 5, Boris, which suggests a greater command of rhythmic control, and I think Mr. Johnson is capable. In the Financial Times, we have MI5 spooked, Chinese agent rattles nerves, and Russian threat to Ukraine persists after talks with West hit dead end. Finally, London's tech groups pull in £20.5 billion amid voracious appetite for startups. Friday's Guardian has Queen strips Andrew of royal and military titles, and MI5 warns MPs over China influence threat, and Grey Inquiry will reveal farcical culture at number 10. A slightly different anticipated result there from The Guardian. Friday's Eye leads with Prince Andrew cast out by the Queen, and in the Express we have Queen casts Andrew adrift. You can see where I was getting confused, for the sake of the monarchy rather than for her own amusement. The Star goes with the narcissist formerly known as Prince. Sooner or later one of them was bound to get there, and they have done very well also to match GB News colours on the front page there. Well done, The Star. So, welcome to Headliners, a show that speaks truth to power via the finest comedy conduits the UK has to offer. And I'm joined by 2 such conduits tonight. Our guests are the newly anointed Vice Admiral, Eric McElroy, and picking up also Prince Andrew's departure, his lady-in-waiting is Nick Dixon. I don't write this stuff, Nick. Don't take it out on me. Looks like Prince Andrew, like the royal yacht, has been decommissioned. And you can picture the scene as he hands over his gun and his badge and his sceptre and orb and all his ducal paraphernalia. You're going in there alone, York. You understand? No wire, no cover, no insurance. Plausible deniability. Of course, we'll all be rooting for you back at base behind closed doors. But we just can't be seen to support you in public. What with you being a bit of a wrong'un and all. Well, that I should add was a fantasy scenario. I have no idea whether the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew really is a nonce, but I am looking forward to his having a chance to properly clear his name once and for all, every bit as much as I am sure he is, now that all the impedimenta have been cast aside. Eric, what is your take on this farcical, antiquated saga?
Wow. I mean, I guess I'm sure this has been asked many times before, and it will be asked many times again. Do you think he's sweating now?
Well, if he's not sweating now,
point.
then biologically he really is a remarkable specimen.
Can't do it. I mean, I hadn't watched the interview where he said the famous sweating line.
Oh, you haven't watched that?
No, I finally did just recently with all this going on.
Yeah.
But the point that was even worse was when she said, so even with all of this, would you just, were you wrong to be friends with Epstein? And he still went, I don't know.
What you have to
right.
understand, what was her name? Emily, isn't it? What you have to understand, Emily, is the very convenient location.
Exactly.
Yes, I continued to stay there long after it was established he was arguably the world's most notorious pimp. But, it was remarkably handy for the shops. It was a close walk to the theatre.
Back in the day, would have been like, well, Genghis Khan, he was misunderstood. You just need to understand. It's just, anything.
Yeah, what's your take, Nick? I get the sense you're not a staunch royalist either way, really.
Well, I used to sort of think, they're good for the country and all that, but now I'm struggling to care at this point. We do so many stories on them, I'm just sort of like, ugh.
Well, now we no longer have a tourist industry. Now people aren't allowed to travel by air anyway.
Good point. You found the positive. Look, sex scandal, shamed by the whole family in his title strip, and yet he's still not as bad as Prince Harry. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. Prince Harry might be able to pick up a few extra titles now. That's lying around.
When Prince Edward used to be the one that was sort of bringing disgrace on the royal family because he'd accepted a job with Andrew Lloyd Webber's theatrical productions. Back on those as a golden era.
Yeah.
The Queen must think. I mean, they are falling apart. And it is running parallel, which we will come to, of course, shortly, with the sense that the government is a right old shower as well. But there is a sense that the royal family, they're trying to cut their losses. They are trying to create a circuit breaker, I suppose you might call it, although that term has been used in another context recently. They're trying to distance themselves and stop the contamination spreading, but I don't know, is it too late? Could be too late.
Yeah, I mean, and this is meant to be a big year for the Queen with the Jubilee, whatever celebration it is coming up. She's got another thing. I'm a naturalized British citizen, so I swore an oth of allegiance to Queen Elizabeth II and her heirs and successors.
Dress like a colonial.
I do try and mix it up a little bit, but so I've always kind of enjoyed them as a thing that's there, but it doesn't look like how it's going to survive with these crises happen. I mean, the Queen is beloved.
The thing about the royal family is that if you read your Shakespeare or whatever, they used to be absolutely ruthless, much as the Tory party did. As soon as there was any sort of danger that the throne was wobbly, somebody would up and there would be a short dagger in the back, or there would be blood would be spilled in the throne room. They don't have the capacity to do that anymore. No. It's all being done in very... I mean, he's not even, as somebody said on Twitter, he's not even the worst Duke of York. I mean, he hasn't actually murdered any nephews yet, but maybe he needs to take his cue from some of those. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Prince Charles will be able to change the sense that the monarchy is a moribund institution at this point?
I don't really think so. Prince Charles is an eco-nut, isn't he? He's absolutely obsessed with he wants a global Marshall Plan on climate change. My hope is in Prince William. I think he's the biggest hope to sort of be a bit normal and sort the royal family out, because he seems all right.
Yeah, I agree with you. How are they going to do that? And this is the point. They no longer have the nerve to actually assassinate, in a Macbeth style. They will not steep themselves in blood, and this is their problem.
But eventually he'll get it and rescue it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, eventually. Well, we will be old and grey by that time. Prince
What
Charles will avail himself of some stem cell research that is currently operating out of an unnamed clinic in Panama.
If he's right, we'll all be underwater by then, actually.
That's true.
Exactly.
Our second story concerns The Gardener and the Spy. That's a title I've given to it anyway. It's in Friday's Times and elsewhere. Labour MP Barry Gardiner is said to have received significant funds over many years from a known Chinese state asset. None of this seems to be disputed. Her name is Christine Lee. She's a lawyer, and her firm donated hundreds of thousands of pounds over the years to Gardiner's office. It seems this has all been acknowledged some time ago, but Gardiner claims he was keeping MI5 posted on it. He declared the payments, and until recently, all she got for her money was a post-room job for her son in the law firm. In Gardiner's firm, I should say, and in his office, and a few favourable tweets about Beijing's commitment to tackling climate change and not mentioning human rights and Hong Kong too much. Lee's son has resigned earlier today, but other than that, not a great deal has happened. No action has been taken against her. She's not to be deported or anything like that. She's simply exposed as being connected and compromised. by her association with the Chinese state, and it's advised that she be kept out of Parliament. It feels like it feels like a bit of a non-story, which I'm beginning to wonder if it's been cooked up in order to distract us from Boris's woes. What do you think?
This is in the back drawer that they've got.
Yeah,
so I mean, maybe they move forward things on Prince Andrew's court case. Now they're bringing forward the Chinese scandal.
Yeah.
Anything that they can to distract things. It is interesting because she's been around in politics, moving around not just on the Labour side. She's pictured with David Cameron, with Theresa May. She's been, spreading the money around.
She's a mover.
Coming from apparently the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
What I do like is that the MP Gardner says that he's known about this for a while, working with MI5, but he was continuing to employ her son until today.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden that it's in public, he's like, oh, maybe this isn't a good idea to have someone who's related to a spy in my office.
Is it bad to have somebody like, if you know and it's announced and everyone knows, does it matter?
You just whisper the wrong secrets.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
I kind of feel like keep your enemies close.
What they said, they can't arrest her because the Official Secret Act is so hard to arrest anyone for this. Apparently you have to actually be caught swiveling around in your chair, petting a cat.
Big cat.
And then they're known.
Not a dead cat, like the one that's been thrown onto the table. What do you think?
Well, Eric's kind of stolen what I was going to say. It's because it's so not stolen's too strong, but anticipated would be better. But it's so good in
pre-echoed.
Yes, exactly.
Great minds.
Got to the same joke first. In Barry Gardner's statement, the one thing Eric missed is how he said it. He said, Christine Lee's son volunteered in my office many years ago and was subsequently employed by me as a diary manager. He resigned from my employment earlier today. You're like, the first part is distancing himself from it. Then he was still there today. It's like you can still catch him if you run down the street.
Volunteered, suggesting it was kind of quite a. It was almost like a charitable endeavour.
Right. Right, it means on paper. But the bit I like as well is he even says the security services have advised me that they have no intelligence that shows he was aware of or complicit in his mother's illegal activity. So he didn't know his mum was a spy. That's how good she was.
It's good. That is impressive. I can't work out. I think the thing I feel about, to be honest, about the Chinese state is they are something to be worried about. I mean, we're joking about this, but they are obviously on a different scale in many ways to what the previous Cold War that I grew up in. That's I don't know how well you remember it. The idea, the kind of James Bond, idea of the Russian state, the Kremlin. It was terrifying in many ways, but the Russian state, we knew it was dysfunctional. We knew it was hollow. We knew it was economically compromised. They had thrown all of their money and efforts at nuclear weapons and militarization. The Chinese threat is I feel vastly more technically accomplished and sophisticated and kind of worrying, to be honest. And I don't quite feel we're in their league anymore. And yet when you see things like this, you just kind of go, Barry Gardner, really? Yeah. Is that what you're throwing about?
I hadn't heard of him until today. Yeah. I think she spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on all of these MPs. Yeah. All she needed to do was to get them to have TikTok on their phones, and then the Chinese would have known everything that we were all doing.
Or install Alexa.
Exactly.
What I'm confused about is, I don't know what we're allowed to say legally, was Barry Gardner going along with it as a very clever asset of MI5, or was he just being a typical Labour Party member and loving communist? That's why I can't decide. I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I'm just speculating satirically as a layman.
It would be very hard
allegedly.
to judge, but I suppose if you're going to spend money, it's best to work with the grain, isn't it? Rather than, try and get Ian Duncan Smith.
The Times reported she was a bit dodgy as early as 2017, so since then, has he just been going on with it brilliantly in a cunning plan? You know what I mean?
But at the same time, if they're investing hundreds of thousands of pounds into a Labour MP, I mean, who's actually in government? We haven't seen that for a while.
He hasn't been in, no, he's not. He was the shadow international development secretary or something for a while, which I guess was fairly useful, ago. But, a few handy tweets. Friday's Telegraph and most of the other papers have got this garden party story, which is carrying on, but it has taken, I think, quite a disquieting turn. Eric, it turns out yet another knees up was being had, I think, in the basement rather than the garden this time. Yep. This was on the night immediately preceding Prince Philip's funeral, is that right?
Yeah, so the night before the funeral, where the Queen infamously was sat there on her own to mourn her husband of, however many years, that the night before that, there was yet another party somewhere in Downing Street or in government where they're boozing it up and everything else. And that picture I've already seen other people tweeting it, of the idea that they're partying, or the headline in I think it's the Telegraph, isn't it? And then on the other side of the Queen by herself. I mean, that's it.
I mean, that was the iconic image, not just of that funeral, but of everyone in the country who had lost a loved one, who had been unable to say goodbye at the hospital or whatever, or who had been to a funeral. I went to a funeral that summer. It was for a mate of my own age. Yeah. There were 30 of us allowed in there, but it was weird, you know, it was odd, it was compromised and strange. I have said, you know, my own daughter, she celebrated her 16th birthday in the back garden with a single, well-chosen but rather anxious friend, which was legal in the middle of April. And I look back at that event, and the reality is, you know, that was a landmark birthday for her, 16. That saved me a fortune, you know. I mean, the cleaning costs alone that I would have been facing if she had had the sort of party she had originally had planned. But nevertheless, it was pretty miserable. These Downing Street staffers. I think on this particular occasion, Boris himself was at Chequers. Apparently, there's no suggestion he was attending this. But I suppose the question is, Nick, has he created a culture in which they just don't feel that they have to obey the rules?
Seems that way, doesn't it? And there just seems to be endless episodes to it. It's like a US sitcom, you know, just endless. It's like some sort of series. Well, the Prince Philip thing. I feel like Dominic Cummings is just drip feeding this in. I was hoping the climax won't be as bad as Game of Thrones, but it just keeps. I mean, now it's Prince. It just seems more and more outrage upon outrage.
Who's Carrie, the mother of dragons, in that scenario? Do you think is?
She's Cersei, isn't she?
Yes,
I have to say.
It is true, though. It is that reiteration the whole time, and sometimes when you get further iterations, you start to get tired after day 2 or 3. I remember when Me Too came out, I don't mean any disrespect, there were some serious scandals that had gone on in Hollywood, but before long, it was like a bad date that a comedian had been on. You know, exactly, or somebody had made a clumsy request for some intimacy that had been rebuffed, and that was it, you know. With these, it kind of feels like the more you dig in, the more you go, oh no, on the night before the funeral, come on, have a little bit of...
Right. But I think it's probably what Prince Philip would have wanted.
Well, there is that, but maybe not the Queen. We're coming to the end of part 1. We're going to the weather now, and then it will be advertisements. It's important you watch them and buy their products. We'll see you in a moment for part 2. Don't go anywhere.
Hi there. Clear and frosty for many overnight, and then some dense fog patches to contend with first thing Friday. Otherwise, it will brighten up through the day, many places seeing sunshine by the afternoon under this area of high pressure. It's near the centre of this high pressure where we're likely to see the dense fog and frost. Much of England and Wales then, but Scotland and Northern Ireland a bit more of a breeze, more cloud, and some persistent rain moving through the Northern Isles during the evening, pushing into the north of the mainland overnight. With the cloud and the breeze in the far north, well, it's going to stay frost and fog free here, but further south under clear skies, well, it's going to be a particularly chilly start to Friday. -2, -3 Celsius typical temperatures as we wake up, and those dense freezing fog patches in places. The greatest signal being West Midlands, Welsh Marches, West Country, and some of these fog patches in places could last throughout much of the day. Where that happens, it will stay really quite chilly. But otherwise, once the fog's gone, sunshine replaces it across much of England and Wales. Some brighter spells for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but that persistent rain in the far north still around, albeit petering out by the afternoon. And then we do it all again on Friday nights, effectively. Clear skies across much of England and Wales, widespread frost, and some dense fog forming. This time the greatest signal on Friday night will be across eastern parts of England. I think low cloud more likely further south and southwest because of a bit of a breeze here, and perhaps fog and frost free towards the southwest. Some sunshine in places as we start off Saturday, but an awful lot of low cloud, mist and fog will linger, and it will linger through the morning and into the afternoon in places, especially eastern England. Feeling cold where that happens, but generally the trend through the weekend is for it to become a touch milder, and we'll even see some sunshine, especially in the north, on Sunday.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world. If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236. On Sky, we're channel 515. 626 on Virgin Media. Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel. Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk. Join my show Farrar, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. With me tonight are Eric McElroy and Nick Dixon. And in Friday's Sun, a striking poll regarding Labour's ascendancy. Nick?
Yes, the Sun has over and out. Boris Johnson blow as Labour opens up 10-point gap over Tories as anger grows over number 10 Partygate fiasco. So the Tories have slumped to just 28%, according to a new survey, which is their lowest predicted vote share since the PM won the 2019 election. I mean, he still won. Yeah. But yes, so finally, the impact of this Partygate stuff seems to be kicking in. I'm a little bit worried because all I care about is the restrictions ending on Jan 26. I'll be quite honest. That's all I care about. And I don't want any dead cats emerging or any kind of changes when we're trying to get that. Hopefully, we'll still get that. But yeah, Boris does seem to finally be in trouble with this. I mean, Michael Portillo on this very network was saying that, station was saying he doesn't think he's got very long. He thinks he definitely won't be there at the next election. He won't be there next year, probably. He may not even be there after the local elections.
This seems to be the calculation that I think the Labour backbenchers, the 1922 committee and so on, they will be trying to work out, I think, at this point. Is it better that he carry on and take the flak for some local elections, for instance? You can make that kind of cynical calculation. You can keep him in situ as the dead duck or whatever, or is it a lame duck, isn't it? Yeah. Dead cat, lame duck, yeah. And or you can get shot of him now and hope to turn things around more quickly. There's almost a sense that Labour might be thinking, while he's in there, in trouble, keep him propped up and attracting all kinds of opprobrium, because he's beginning to stink. So they want that to get, to contaminate the entire party.
Well, especially if there's a daily drip of party after party that they've been having, at 10 Downing Street and everywhere else.
Yeah.
60% want him to go. The other 40%. I mean, who are these people? Are they in their garden partying right now and don't realize what's happening? I mean, how can you? There's just
well, the reason is because he has proved to be an extraordinary vote winner. He was he won elections when nobody else seemed to be able to do so, and in 2019 in particular, he scored an extraordinary victory.
I think that's the key, by the way, if I may. That
the chrome has worn off, though, right?
Well, that's the question. I think Boris is the Jose Mourinho of politics. He's been such a winner, but at some point, I mean, they do say all political careers end in failure. At some point, will it rub off and will he start to lose? We don't know. That's the calculation.
They say end in failure and disappointment, and I'm not sure if Johnson's would end in his disappointment. I have a sense underneath it all, he may be looking for his own way out now. Apart from anything else, he has had many years as a very well-paid, high-profile columnist. He was earning hundreds of thousands of pounds as a columnist with the Telegraph and the Spectator and so on, and as a published author. Prime Minister's salary is healthy, 150 grand, but it's not the kind of salary he was used to. Yeah. And of course, you can't start cashing in on all the backhanders until you actually leave. So we have no idea how many illegitimate children he's supporting, but they won't just be getting, enough money for beans and chips. They will be, they will have mothers who expect a private education for their little Johnsons. And I think it all mounts up. I think he might actually be looking for an escape hatch.
Well, some of those children are legitimate. Let's just say that
got
right
a
now.
few of those
We don't know how many of those there are either.
And they're all great people.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, he will fail up again. I think that's kind of in his DNA. I think just the next job, he'll have to pay for his own wallpaper.
But can I ask how you feel about the whole thing? I feel that this party issue is both simultaneously very silly and very serious. In a way, I don't care at all. But in a way, of course, you can't tell people to follow these awful rules, then you don't follow them.
No,
it's interesting that Boris, he can't. You almost feel in his heart he didn't think much of the rules either. But because he didn't have the backbone, and it would have been tough to stand up to Sage, stand up to the media, because he didn't have the backbone to stand against them then. It's impossible for him to say now, well, to be honest, I didn't think much of these rules anyway. Yeah. So his own lack of backbone maybe has finally undone him.
The big difference seems to me to have been whether people should have been allowed to socialise out of doors, which we found, which I think we knew fairly early on was pretty safe, right?
Yeah.
That was understood pretty early on, and that would have saved him from a lot of this.
Yeah, that's what I think Dominic Rees-Mogg was on some broadcast today, basically starting to attack the rules now, and that's going to be their defence. That, well, the rules that we made you all follow at the time, we realize now we're wrong, because, the science has evolved, and we have learned that, yes, from the beginning, we probably could have been outdoors more and so on. But if you remember, none of us knew what was happening, and, none of us knew exactly what the parameters of the disease were.
Bloody shower. The Mirror is reporting that the Tories are cutting something, Eric, and this is not just taxes. What is this?
Yes, this is going back to the rules again, and it looks like the lockdown days are going to be changing.
Okay.
And we might get to come back to 5 days of isolation, and you can come out of isolation after 5 days and I want to make sure I get this right because it's a little bit complicated.
If you're a Tory.
If you're going to 10 Downing Street, that's one. 2 is if it's on your 5th or 6th day, you can take 2 negative tests. Then if you check your horoscope, and if things look good, if there's a wind from the north and it's bin day, you're out of quarantine.
Yeah, and if there's a Y in the month.
Yeah, that's basically it. So, I mean,
This is what you're after, though, Nick. This is the light at the end of the tunnel, or a bit more.
Well, I mean, my isolation has lasted many, many years, but completely unrelated to COVID. It's more to do with my well-documented lack of friends, which I've been attacked for on Twitter. But I mean, look, there was an interesting thing about this that Sky News said it was just for the fully vaccinated, which turned out to be false. Because it got me reading through everything. And I read through the average visual speech, and there was nothing about that. So I wonder how that ended up in there, if that was a little nudge.
It's a good idea, though.
Nice, but this is not for me, but maybe for your side. But it's actually for everyone. The key part, the boring part, is that 2/3 of positive cases are no longer infectious by the end of day 5, and that rises to 93% if you've had 2 negative lateral flow tests 24 hours apart, which you can't get hold of. But that's the science behind it, Eric. Follow the science.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, if you were stuck at home for more days, that's just more work for the rest of us. So that's the only reason I'm advocating for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the other person this is good news for are
You've
people
acknowledged I'm a threat, then.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, to me particularly.
Do you anticipate, though, that after this, like the end of January, do you think they're just going to kind of allow it to just sink in? Because it's pretty obvious. The NHS is holding up under this strain, despite all the gloomiest warnings, prophecies of disaster. We're coping, right? Just the same as every year. There's there'll be a few creaks and groans, but the infrastructure.
You're talking about let the whole thing fall away. That's my great hope on January 26th. I mean, the FT was still bullish on that. They said that ministers are hoping we will do that. My fear, my sort of, call it paranoia, is that they're talking about getting rid of free lateral flow tests. So my worry was that was to bring in a vaccine passport or make lateral flows prohibitively expensive like they did in Italy.
Yeah.
But my hope is that they're just going to actually just scrap everything.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I went to, this is a random thing, but I went to a photographic exhibition at the Science Museum in London a couple of days ago. It's a fantastic exhibition, if anyone is interested. A guy called Salgado photographs vast black and white photographs of the Amazon rainforest and its denizens. It was so empty, it was like having a private viewing. I felt like royalty being allowed to walk around unencumbered by, I mean, if you've ever gone to an art exhibition and you know what it's like when people get in the way, it's annoying, right? Other people are annoying. It was absolutely wonderful. But I did think London is absolutely on its backside at the, 2 years on. Things like that. That's the Science Museum. That should be attracting people.
I think people are starting to come back, though, because, a lot of comedy clubs, which are good barometers, because going into a comedy club has felt high risk for a lot of people in the last few weeks. But, the people I've been talking to that run clubs, they're seeing the phone is ringing again and bookings are coming in again. Because I think people, especially seeing all of this stuff with these Partygate stories,
let's hope so. Kim Kardashian is back in the news. She's famous for pump and dump, but this is the first one involving cryptocurrency. Nick, is she a bit of a guru to follow?
Well, yes. Normally, if you see Kim Kardashian with pump and dump, you think not safe for work. But this is about finance. Kim Kardashian and Floyd Mayweather sued over alleged crypto pump and dump. So what they did, they allegedly promoted a sort of Well, there's a word for it, which I probably can't say, S-coin. They probably promoted a dodgy coin.
Yeah.
And
non-Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah. Yes, not the creme de la creme of the crypto world. And I mean, I saw elsewhere that Floyd Mayweather was allegedly paid $30 million to have it on his trunks. That may even be fact. I don't know. I'm saying allegedly just in case. On his boxing trunks.
This is the recently retired boxer, right? Floyd Mayweather.
Yes.
He's the guy who now does sort of celebrity bouts.
Right, the undefeated Floyd, we should say. You know, obviously...
He had the one with the podcast guy.
Logan Paul recently, where Logan Paul did surprisingly well. Yeah. Okay. Mayweather, Money Mayweather, as he's called. You can see why. So, yeah, he promoted this Ethereum Max on his trunks. Kim Kardashian promoted it on her Instagram. And this is what people do now. I mean, this kind of coalescence of finance and the internet gives us some great things. Like it gives us the Reddit apes who subvert bankers with their meme stocks, which is obviously awesome and brilliant. But then it also gives us this thing where you can just pump up a currency much easier and you can just get all your fans to, you know, put into it and then sell.
And then you sell. Overnight.
Right. And there's also another thing people do where they do a pump and dump and an MLM, you know, multi-level marketing, less generously called pyramid schemes, where you basically you pump up a currency, then you get loads of people to buy into it. You get a kickback from them coming on board, and then you also just sell it. And so there's a lot of dodgy schemes, and they may be involved in one.
I have to say, I don't feel a huge amount of sympathy for anyone who decides to invest any sizable on the basis of what it says on Mayweather's backside.
Who do I need to get financial advice from? Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
It's like getting medical advice from Novak Djokovic.
She's extraordinarily wealthy, you know, she's made it, but it doesn't feel like a business model that you can repeat endlessly. I don't know.
Right, they are sort of a gamble anyway, these coins, aren't they? Some people have a bit of a flutter on some of these coins.
Yeah.
But yes,
listen, they're extraordinarily volatile. So if you pick one that's you know, not being pumped and dumped by a single celebrity, and you just think, like as with any other investment stock, if I make 10% in a year, that's pretty good. So you just ride it up and down, and at some point you jump out, and you know, I think that's viable, possible. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like a financial accountant. GBNews is the biggest pump. But anyway, we're going to another ad break now. I don't suppose you'll be seeing any coins of any legitimacy, but don't go anywhere. We'll see you shortly.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
And welcome back to part 3 of Headliners. I have with me two of the UK comedy circuit's finest in the form of Eric McElroy and Nick Dixon. Turns out, wealthy parents breed wealthy children. Surprise, surprise. Eric, what's this about?
Yeah, this is a story in the Daily Mail. And children of wealthy parents are 3 times more likely to own a home by the time they're 35. And I think you could replace that headline with just the word duh.
Yeah.
People with money continue to have money. I mean, that's why I always tell both of my children, marry for money.
Yep.
Do not marry for love. That's the mistake your mother and I made, and look where we've ended up in our lives. And it's about generational wealth, which is
another
a huge
thing that the royals used to understand, right? This is where they've been going wrong lately, marrying for love. You marry to buy dynasties. That's how you do it. There was a book, wasn't there, or an advice? There was a guru who said, rich dad, poor dad. You know that book?
Yes, of course.
And basically, the message in that is spend all your money on appreciating assets. And only ever borrow to buy things that are going to go up in value.
Robert Kiyosaki, he pointed out that most people think their house is an asset, but it's actually a liability.
Yeah, well, it depends, doesn't it? Because the thing about people don't understand mortgages. People think of mortgages as a burden, but the reality is mortgages are an opportunity to leverage, right? So if you've got like 10% of the value of a house and you can get a mortgage, then it will go up, and that will magnify your chances of it earning money.
So I've heard.
Yeah, but that's the whole point in this.
It's powerful. Yeah. I remember I have a few. Well, I studied law at university. Didn't pursue it, but I met a few people who came from wealthy stock as a result. One thing I always notice when you go to their houses, their furniture is old. All of their furniture is old. All of it was either came with them or they would buy it from antique shops or whatever. They did not think, I want a nice new sofa from IKEA that will be worth 1/10 of what I paid for it within a month.
Well, we still rent and I have old furniture, so I don't know what I'm
Can I just ask, isn't this slightly more nuanced than just rich people stay rich? It's also this difference between the boomers and the... Basically, boomers have all the money, and I was looking at this thinking we should introduce a boomer tax, and I realised that was just tax. That's what it is, because they have all the money anyway. They're being taxed.
Well, no, there are ways. There's Georgism, which is the proposition that you tax land value rather than just wealth, but you tax the rentable value of your land. And there is some argument to that, except it would make a huge shift in the whole tax code, which people have based all their investment decisions on it being what it is. So if you changed it, it would be quite harsh. But there is an argument for that. That would be, there is an extraordinary amount of unearned wealth sitting in property, and arguably it would make more sense to tax that than people's hard work and endeavour through income tax, or indeed the things that suppress sales by VAT. I'm kind of for it in principle, but the devil is in the detail.
First time I've heard of it. It's very highbrow content for GB. I'm loving that.
Our next story is from The Express, and Elvis is back. I have missed Elvis. Nick, you got this?
Yep, Daily Express. Elvis Costello cancels Oliver's Army over racial slur, and he's basically told radio stations don't play the record, and he's not going to play it live either. So, of course, over the controversial lyric, white N-word, basically, as to refer to Irish people at a certain time. So it's a great song. Now, so this is a very nuanced issue. I mean, recently a country artist got in trouble just for saying that word on a drunken bender, and he had to.
He did.
No, there was a country artist. I was thinking about this story the other day before it actually happened. I was thinking, what would happen to Oliver's Army? And now I've got my answer. It's going to be cancelled. But it's very interesting because I think Elvis Costello is a bit more nervous than he might be, because he was in trouble in 1979 for saying that word in a less nice context, when he said it about Ray Charles and James Brown when he was drunk trying to wind up an American artist, and he said that word and he got in a lot of trouble, and now it would completely end his career. But the reason I think he's wrong is he's pandering to this sort of, whatever you want to call it, wokeism, whatever you want to call it, because he's ignoring the historical context. He knows about the historical context.
He's using that word in a way that understands and deliberately weaponizes its power to shock, rather than in a casual slur.
Because the whole song is really about working class people being seen as expendable by the military-industrial complex, or whatever you want to call it. He's talking about Ireland, he's talking about the Troubles, but he also talks about the boys from the Mersey and the Thames and the Tyne.
I never quite understood. It's a great song, but mainly because the piano riff is exactly the same as
Dancing Queen.
Right? Yeah, but it's a hard one to follow. It's one of those songs, it's got lots of great lines and couplets and images, and yet I never quite understood what it was talking about. I think
can explain it if you want.
Go on.
No, it's talking about working-class people getting exploited by various wars.
Who was Oliver, though?
Oliver's reference to Oliver Cromwell because of things like the Irish... Well, it used to be called the Irish Massacre. I don't know if they say that anymore.
Yeah, right.
But, so it's linking the Troubles with Oliver Cromwell. I believe it's doing that. Some people say it was one of Churchill's staff, but I believe it's probably Cromwell.
Yeah.
So that's probably Oliver. But
do you remember John Lennon? I had an album of his, like a greatest hits album of his, and it had, Number 9 Dream and Imagine and so on. And one of those, the title of the song was "Woman is the N-word of the world." Do you remember that song?
Yeah.
And that was again, it was a powerful song. And it was right there on the front of the cover as well. It wasn't just like tucked away in the, I would imagine that's been withdrawn now. But there was a time at which you could use that word. I mean, you could obviously use it just in a way that nobody would defend, that was just like as a slur or a way of denigration. But there was another way of using it that made you understand that it was kind of predated intersectional feminism, that you could understand there were different ways from which you could attack people.
But the song hasn't been cancelled. He's decided to stop singing it. I just looked on my Spotify and it's still there for me to listen to. The lyrics still exist for other people to sing. Yeah. He's decided as an artist of his own merits to pull it back. Yeah. Just like we have jokes as comics that we retire eventually.
Not me. I've never written a bad joke. This year's Model was the album, I think, wasn't it? It's a fantastic
That's his second album. Great album. Can I just disagree with what Eric said?
Yes.
Because there's a great piece in The Independent. It's kind of, I say great, I don't mean it. It talks about this not being censorship, it's just decency. And he says it's all about harm reduction, which is a sort of weird Orwellian dystopian thing, harm reduction. And it's not really what life is about in a Christian context, but harm reduction. Anyway, and he says that by taking it off the radio, he's actually encouraging people to engage with it more deeply, which kind of seems like sophistry to me.
There's always a lot of double talk in those things, isn't there? Like the way people say that chucking a statue in the dock is a way of people...
right. I don't buy it. I don't buy Eric's thing about it.
You're right. I think he should be forced to sing the song.
He shouldn't be forced
day
to sing
after day until he learns.
Well, there should be two channels. This is what I think. It's like the Pogues with Fairy Tale in New York, right? There are two versions of that now, with one of them has that problematic word removed, which my daughter at the age of 10 used to sing delightedly, and I'd always love it when she'd get to that bit and she didn't know what she was singing. But I think Radio 2 has the old version and Radio 1, which the young people listen to and are a little bit more delicate, prefer the new version.
Can I just say my only problem, obviously I'm not desperate to hear this word. Obviously, it's horrific when applied to American slavery and so on, but my only problem is it's a kind of American influence, woke revisionism, overriding our own complicated history. That's all I'm saying.
OK, we'll leave it there. And now to The Guardian and the bizarre world of death row politics in the US of A. Eric, this is your wheelhouse.
It's my home country. Very proud of America, land of the free.
And there is a photographic representation of that.
Yep, that's what makes America great right there.
I used to dream of a bed like that I could pretend to be in an aeroplane, but that's not what's going on there, is it?
Well, I didn't know which way you were going to go with that you were dreaming for there, Simon, but I'm glad you went that way. Yes, this is 2 Oklahoma death row inmates have actually petitioned to be executed by firing squad rather than lethal injection, which is most people probably would think is not the first area you go. But, I mean, this is the legacy of having the death sentence in America still is I think, awful. But basically, the injections that they give people, lethal injections, the cocktails, the companies that make the cocktails don't want to make them anymore.
Right. The cocktails being the actual drugs, not the drugs that you have beforehand.
Exactly. When you get the nice meal, that's the one benefit of getting your life taken away from you.
Yeah.
Even if you're an awful person, which I'm sure probably these two guys are. But because the mix of the cocktails gotten so dicey, sometimes the lethal injection.
Well, there's some danger involved.
Yeah. So basically, you don't. Basically, it's meant to be an inhumane death.
Right.
And
what would the danger be? The agonizing pain before.
Agonizing pain, which some people I'm sure think these men deserve, but they're saying, if you go for the firing squad, that it's a faster death.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do basically is delay their actual death by going into the courts and saying this is cruel and unusual punishment, because you can basically lethal injection. You can go for the firing squad. You can go for an hour, however you feel about the election results in 2016. You can go for listening to Donald Trump talk about how he won again. That'll take you in about a month. Or listening to anyone talk about going back to the gold standard.
But what is the breakdown in? And it's not a federal decision. This is a state by state. So some states don't have the death penalty.
That's right. Yeah. So.
Where is this one?
Oklahoma. This is Oklahoma, which is definitely kind of, it's a conservative Republican state. And I mean, the death penalty, I don't know what the latest polls are. I mean, it has been, still supported in the United States.
Yeah. I didn't know you could still have firing squad. That's it. Because the whole point with firing squad...
You can be still hung.
...was that it was that one guy would have an empty cartridge, right? And so you never knew.
You never knew, yeah. They don't actually, they've never used it. They're just saying they can.
They can.
Can I just say, the part I found most interesting is that doctor who does the lethal injections is paid $15,000 for each injection. I hear that he's staunchly against firing squads.
Yeah.
Who books
15,000?
15 grand per execution. And weirdly, it says he's paid $1,000 for every day of training. I don't know why it throws that in there. But
there's one. I remember somebody read the memoir of I can't remember his name, the last hangman in England. Apparently, his memoir is a fascinating read. A very intelligent and humane individual who made very sure, of course, that anyone who dropped in one of his nooses met a swift and painless death. And he had quite a. I think quite a profound humanism about him, and it was. What's it? Pierpoint, that's it. How Alfred.
Oh yeah, there's a movie about it.
Yeah, very famous individual. I can't imagine you get that with the injection somehow. Though maybe not. I don't know.
I await his book with interest.
Yeah. Do you think when all the vaccines actually kick in and the 5G is fired up and everyone starts dropping, do you think all the NHS nurses who have been the angels of death will get 15 grand a pop for anyone? That's going dark there. Obviously, that's all tongue-in-cheek, folks. Pay no attention. This next story from Friday's Mirror, and a rare COVID symptom that reduces the size of your penis. So it turns out I was foreshadowing that story with that last bit. Have you had any experience of this, Nick?
Yes. Well. When I say yes, I wasn't saying yes to that. No, it sounds bad losing an inch. I mean, I would be gutted to go down to 9 inches. But the point is,
I'm so sorry. Illustration, isn't it? My goodness.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I didn't see that before. Yes. Rare COVID symptom that affects penis size. A sufferer, he claims he's lost an inch. What's crazy about it is, Alex Jones predicted that he said that COVID.
This is Alex Jones, the American conspiracy theorist, not the
from
co-host
Correct.
of the One.
Yeah, I mean, he said a while ago, COVID eats your testicles. Turn out, yet again, he was close. He was millimetres away.
Another coin in the jar. Alex Jones was right. Frogs are gay.
It is, of course, I mean, they're calling it COVID penis. It is, of course, if true, very serious. People on sort of my side of the internet have dismissed this as more scaremongering. This is the one that would get to me if any propaganda was going to affect me.
Well, do you remember, though, there was, I can't remember, was it Cardi B or someone? She said she had a cousin in Africa and
Nicki
her
Minaj.
Nephew had it and his testicles had swollen up.
They're swollen. Her cousin, Nicki Minaj's cousin.
Nicki Minaj, that's right.
Yeah. That's got to be an awkward, because you ask people how their COVID was, and you ask him and he's like, oh. Yeah, that's not comfortable.
Fair play to him for coming out with it anyway, because that, a conspiracy of silence can very easily surround those kind of symptoms. Up next, Friday's Times. And if you thought you had only spelling and grammar to worry about while typing, think again. I think this is with you as well, Nick,
Yes, OK, yes, the Times. Microsoft Word introduces new woke feature to suggest PC alternatives. Of course, Microsoft would suggest PC alternatives. Am I right? Am I right?
Wouldn't,
Joe, there you go.
But anyway, yes, all right.
You got the point. I've done it now. No one can take it away from me. Microsoft has introduced a political correctness tool.
Right.
One wonders which tool came up with it, to help users make their writing more inclusive. So things like the line Neil Armstrong uttered when he stepped on the moon, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, is deemed problematic by the software, which suggests changing mankind to humankind or humanity. This seems almost deliberately designed to annoy GB viewers and me. I mean, this is almost entrapment. This is just so annoying. Yeah. The children's cartoon Postman Pat also fails the inclusivity test, with the software preferring mail carrier Pat or postal worker Pat. And I dread to think what it makes of his black and white cat, but it doesn't say.
Does it come out with a little paper clip?
It's a little purple
type of bigoted screed.
Yes, it's an underline.
If you hadn't done that joke, I've got it written right here. Somebody had to say it. I mean, you've got to get a paperclip joke in there.
But presumably this is only for people who want this to happen, right? This is not going to be like kind of.
It is optional, yes.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in there.
It's kind of weird. This is literally like Orwellian.
But if they could write software like that, could they do software that would help us write jokes? I wouldn't mind.
Right. On the lines, this is rubbish.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they have those things. What's it called? Elegant variation, which is when you just continually find different ways of saying things in a long article. It's not exactly jokes, but it's a way of kind of keeping it. So initially you go, Nick Dixon, 36, told a joke. The bearded comedian.
Yes, I hate that. I hate it. All papers do it. I hate it. It's actually bad, isn't it? It's bad form, but all papers do it.
It depends whether, if you notice it, it's become bad form, obviously. I think some people are quite good at it, the Londoner, the dad of four or whatever, and then by the time it gets onto the 7th or 8th, the ex-Seattleite,
right. They did it to me once.
Black-shirted.
Yeah, editors did it to me once in one of my articles. I was outraged because I would never use it. I want to state that right now. I will never be caught using elegant variation.
Good for you. The Chinese are accusing the Americans of having an inhumane prison system, according to The Express. This seems quite ironic, Eric?
I don't say this very often, but I agree with the Chinese state.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to put that out there right now. But yeah, I mean, what they're doing is they're saying that, the U.S. had the black op operations in the secret prisons during the Iraq War in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. We've still got Guantanamo Bay, which Obama did try and shut down, but the Republicans stopped him. Yes, it's problematic. I mean, there's a couple... basically, the reason they're doing this is because the Chinese are upset that the Biden administration is not sending government officials to the Winter Olympics. So this is very much your atrocities are worse than my atrocities, and that kind of tit-for-tat sort of thing. And that's what they're trying to do. So, yes, America has done some bad things, but, we at least do try and look at the bad things we do occasionally, because we do try to uphold ourselves as slightly better, and we miss the mark, but at least you can say that and not go to jail forever.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? I find it quite interesting. Most of the focus of Black Lives Matter and all the ensuing debate in America seemed to be focused on whether there was a shoot-to-kill policy directly specifically aimed at young black men. Were they being mowed down? Were they being exterminated? Was there sort of arbitrary judgment being made by the police force, whereas in reality it's the prison system that you should really look at, which seems to be which is way, way worse, and somehow that never gets discussed, or at least in this country it never gets discussed.
It's hugely problematic.
Trump did do some reforms to it, actually, that the Democrats praised. Eric will, I'm sure, acknowledge. But anyway, the prison system. Anyway, this story, this was a shocking story, because the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said at one point, if there's a detention camp for Muslims in the world, it's called Guantanamo. I'm like, you misspelt China, bro. Do you know what I mean?
That's on a different scale altogether, isn't it? Yeah. Well, it's obviously, as you say, all Winter Olympics banter. But
that's what it is.
How many countries have pulled out of that now? Do you know? I don't know. Is it looking like it's not going to be really vital?
Is the UK sending government officials?
I don't know. But if America pull out something like that, it certainly undermines it quite.
Actually, I think Christine Lee is in charge of the delegation.
Havana syndrome has struck again, Nick. I don't know what that is exactly.
It's deadly.
It's nothing to do with cigars?
Yes, in The Guardian, Blinken says US stumped over Havana syndrome as more diplomats fall ill. So Secretary of State says officials do not know what illness is or who's responsible, with more sickness reported in Paris and Geneva. So, yeah, I was worried about this, because in the past you looked at stories about illnesses and you sort of went, whatevs, hope it doesn't affect me. But now you think, is it the apocalypse every time you see one? Is this it? And there's a concern. I mean, the Guardian's being very careful here. It says, Blinken says the United States has raised the illness with the Russians, but still cannot make a determination about who is responsible. But they've raised it with the Russians. And the BBC had a bit more on it about microwave weapons. The question is whether it's a microwave weapon. I think I've eaten a few of those from Lidl. But the point is, yes, there's concern about whether it's a secret microwave weapon or not. There was a more benign theory that it was a stressful event that they all suffered at the same time, which seemed more fanciful to me. But
I'm sure there have been some people genuinely hurt from this, but it does sound kind of like a bad hangover. And they are diplomats.
The trouble with Havana, when you get into espionage, is you think of our man in Havana, you think of Alec Guinness selling vacuum cleaners, and it all just becomes very like Ealing comedy and delightful. But of course, these people are...
Right, now it means nausea, memory lapses and dizziness.
Yeah,
sadly.
Which is a little bit less appealing and rather more unsettling, isn't it? Anyway, we had one more story, which is about OVO Energy laying off a quarter of their staff, but we don't really have time to do justice to that. Cuddle your pets. Keep them close to you. That's the main thing. If you've been laid off by OVO Energy, go home and cuddle your dog.
Star jumps was another one.
That's the best thing we can do. Thank you very much, Nick. Eric, it's been an absolute pleasure. Do you have plans for the weekend, gentlemen?
Is it now? No, just more of this. I'm back here on Saturday.
He's back here on Saturday. I will see you next week. Thanks very much for spending your evening or indeed your early morning with us, because this will be repeated 5 o'clock tomorrow. See you then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi there. Clear and frosty for many overnight, and then some dense fog patches to contend with first thing Friday. Otherwise, it will brighten up through the day, many places seeing sunshine by the afternoon under this area of high pressure. It's near the centre of this high pressure where we're likely to see the dense fog and frost. Much of England and Wales then, but Scotland and Northern Ireland a bit more of a breeze, more cloud, and some persistent rain moving through the Northern Isles during the evening, pushing into the north of the mainland overnight. With the cloud and the breeze in the far north, well, it's going to stay frost and fog free here, but further south under clear skies, well, it's going to be a particularly chilly start to Friday. -2, -3 Celsius typical temperatures as we wake up, and those dense freezing fog patches in places. The greatest signal being West Midlands, Welsh Marches, West Country, and some of these fog patches in places could last throughout much of the day. Where that happens, it will stay really quite chilly But otherwise, once the fog's gone, sunshine replaces it across much of England and Wales. Some brighter spells for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but that persistent rain in the far north still around, albeit petering out by the afternoon. And then we do it all again on Friday nights, effectively clear skies across much of England and Wales, widespread frost and some dense fog forming. This time the greatest signal on Friday night will be across eastern parts of England. I think low cloud more likely further south and southwest because of a bit of a breeze here, and perhaps fog and frost free towards the southwest. Some sunshine in places as we start off Saturday.